9 things I don't do anymore. After 60, life after 60 can feel like a rebirth. In many ways, a time to let go of unnecessary burdens and embrace a more authentic version of ourselves. Below are 9 things that many of us find we no longer do. After reaching this age, each one reflects a shift in values, and each is a step towards greater peace, happiness, and fulfillment. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. No longer care. What people think one of the most liberating aspects of reaching 60 is no longer feeling the need to care about what others think. For much of our lives, we spend time and energy worrying about the opinions of others, whether it's about how we look, how successful we are, or how we conduct our lives. This concern often drives decisions about careers, relationships, and social appearances as we strive to meet societal expectations. But after 60, a shift occurs. The realization dawns that most people are not paying as much attention to us as we think they are. People are wrapped up in their own lives, their own challenges, and their own insecurities. The anxiety of trying to impress or fit into a mold begins to fade away. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent to others, but rather recognizing that external validation is no longer necessary. There's a newfound confidence that comes with age, a sense that we no longer need to prove ourselves to anyone. This freedom allows for a more authentic way of living where choices are based on personal happiness, rather than the need to conform, dressing comfortably rather than fashionably, saying what we really think without fearing judgment, and embracing our own unique quirks becomes source of pride rather than embarrassment. As this realization takes hold, there's a deeper connection to self. What others think of us loses its power, and instead we focus on what brings joy, peace, and contentment into our own lives. The energy once spent on trying to meet external expectations can now be redirected towards nurturing meaning. Meaningful relationships, pursuing passions, or simply enjoying the present moment. After all, the greatest freedom comes not from the approval of others, but from living in a way that is true to ourselves. 2. No longer put up with toxic people throughout our lives. We often tolerate negative or toxic people out of a sense of obligation, fear of conflict, or simply the hope that things might improve. Whether it's a difficult family member, a demanding boss, or a manipulative friend, we spend a lot of emotional energy managing relationships that drain us. In earlier years, we may have felt compelled to keep these people in our lives, believing that walking away was not an option. But as the years pass, particularly after 60, the tolerance for toxic behavior dwindles. There's a growing understanding that life is too short to surround oneself with negativity. The energy once spent on trying to fix or endure difficult relationships is now recognized as wasted effort. Instead, we become more protective of our emotional health, choosing to prioritize peace of mind over the chaos that toxic individuals bring. This doesn't mean we become isolated or cut off from others. Rather, it means being more selective about the company we keep. We choose to spend time with those who are positive, supportive, and loving, rather than those who constantly bring drama, conflict, or resentment into our lives. Setting boundaries becomes an act of self-care, and letting go of toxic relationships is a way to reclaim personal peace. It's not an easy process, but after 60, the ability to say no to people who do not add value to our lives becomes easier. We begin to recognize that we are not obligated to maintain relationships that harm us. And in doing so, we make space for more genuine connections. Relationships that are built on mutual respect, kindness, and care. The time and energy saved from cutting out toxicity can be invested in more fulfilling activities and people, leading to a more peaceful and enriched life. And 3. No longer have unrealistic expectations of others. When we're younger, we often place high expectations on the people around us. We expect our partners to understand us, without us having to explain ourselves. Our friends to always be there when we need them, and our families to fulfill roles that they may not be equipped to handle. These unrealistic expectations can lead to frustration, disappointment, and sometimes resentment. When people inevitably fall short after 60, there's a realization that expecting others to meet all of our needs is both unrealistic and unfair. People are flawed just as we are, and they will not always act in ways that align with our desires. Instead of holding others to impossible standards, there's a shift towards accepting people as they are imperfections. In all, this doesn't mean settling for less in relationships, but rather understanding that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. When we let go of the need for others to be perfect, we open the door to more authentic, compassionate connections. We learn to appreciate the small gestures of kindness and support rather than focusing on what's lacking. This shift in perspective also helps alleviate feelings of disappointment. Instead of being let down when someone doesn't behave in a certain way, there's a greater sense of peace that comes with accepting people for who they are. We stop trying to change others and start appreciating them for the unique individuals. Our relationships become more harmonious, and we become more forgiving both of others and of ourselves. 4. No longer set complex goals in the earlier decades of life. There's often an emphasis on setting and achieving ambitious goals. Whether it's climbing the career ladder, buying a home, raising a family, or reaching financial milestones, we spend much of our lives working towards complex long-term objectives. While this can be fulfilling, it can also create pressure and anxiety, as the fear of not meeting these goals looms over us. By the time we reach 60, the pressure to constantly strive for the next big achievement begins to fade. There's a shift in priorities where the focus moves from accomplishing grand external goals to finding contentment in simpler, more meaningful pursuits. The need to prove ourselves through achievements diminishes, and the desire to enjoy life in the present moment becomes more important. Instead of setting complex long-term goals, the emphasis after 60 is on living well. Today, the goals we set are more personal, more immediate, and more aligned with our values. These might include taking better care of our health, learning a new hobby, or spending more quality time with loved ones. These goals don't require years of planning or intense effort. They are about making each day count in ways that bring joy and fulfillment. There's a newfound appreciation for the smaller victories in life, like successfully growing a garden, enjoying a peaceful walk, or deepening a relationship. The complexity of earlier goals is replaced with a focus on what truly matters in the here and now. Living without the constant pressure of long-term objectives allows for more peace and satisfaction, as we come to understand that the journey is far more important than the destination. 5. No longer try to keep busy just for the sake of it. In a society that equates busyness with productivity, many of us spend our younger years rushing from one task to the next. Whether it's balancing work, family, or social commitments, there's often a sense of pride in staying busy. Being constantly in motion makes us feel like we are achieving something, even if it leaves us feeling exhausted and disconnected from what really matters. After 60, the need to keep busy for the sake of it diminishes. There's a realization that busyness does not necessarily equate to a fulfilling life. In fact, constantly filling our days with activity can often prevent us from appreciating the simple pleasures of life. The frantic pace of earlier years gives way to a more mindful approach, where the focus is on quality rather than quantity. This doesn't mean giving up on productivity or engagement, but it does mean being more intentional about how we spend our time, rather than filling the day with endless tasks or commitments. There's a greater appreciation for moments of rest, reflection, and enjoyment. Whether it's spending time with loved ones, engaging in a favorite hobby, or simply sitting quietly and enjoying the present moment. Life after 60 is about finding balance. Slowing down allows for a deeper connection to ourselves and the world around us. Instead of rushing from one thing to the next, we can savor each experience more fully. The pressure to do it all fades away, and in its place is a sense of peace that comes from living in alignment with our true values. The need for constant busyness is replaced by the desire for meaningful engagement in the things that truly matter. 6. No longer engage in unnecessary debates. Earlier in life, there's often a strong impulse to voice opine opinions, defend positions, and engage in debates on a wide range of topics, from politics and social issues to personal choices and philosophies. We may have felt that it was important to express our viewpoints sometimes, even going out of our way to correct others or prove a point. Debating could be seen as a form of intellectual exercise, a way to assert our identity, or even to solidify our place within a social group. But after 60, something shifts. The urge to engage in unnecessary debates begins to fade, replaced by a desire for peace and understanding, and rather than conflict and division. This doesn't mean losing passion for important issues or becoming passive in the face of injustice. Instead, it's about choosing when and where to invest emotional and mental energy. The realization sets in that not every disagreement requires a response, and not every discussion needs to become a debate. There's a newfound clarity that comes with age, the wisdom to recognize which conversations are worth having and which are not. After decades of experiencing the ups and downs of life, the desire to argue about every little thing diminishes. Instead of feeling the need to be right or to convince others of your perspective, there's a growing sense of contentment with letting people have their own opinions. The value of maintaining peace, both internally and in relationships, becomes a higher priority than winning arguments. This shift is also driven by an understanding of how futile many debates can be over time. It becomes clear that people are often entrenched in their beliefs, and no amount of debating is likely to change their minds, rather than engaging in exhausting discussions that rarely lead to meaningful change. There's a choice to conserve energy for more constructive conversations. The focus shifts toward fostering understanding and connection rather than division and contention. Additionally, the realization dawned that life is too short to spend it arguing over matters that ultimately don't impact personal well-being or happiness. By choosing to disengage from unnecessary debates, there's more space for positive interactions, creative pursuits, and peaceful moments of reflection time spent with loved ones. Hobbies and personal growth takes precedence over conflict. This doesn't mean retreating from meaning. Meaningful discourse entirely after 60, the approach to communication becomes more thoughtful and intentional. Instead of engaging in debates that escalate into arguments, there's a preference for discussions that promote mutual understanding and respect. Listening becomes more valuable than speaking, and the goal shifts from winning an argument to finding common ground, or simply respecting differences. The desire to prove oneself through verbal sparring fades, and in its place is a deepened appreciation for the peace that comes from accepting that not all conversations need to lead to a conclusion. 7. No longer pretend to have all the answers in our earlier years. Many of us feel the pressure to have all the answers. Whether it's in our personal lives or in our professional roles, we're often expected to know what to do in every situation. This expectation can create stress as we struggle to maintain an image of competence or authority, even when we don't have all the information. But as we age, particularly after 60, there's a liberation that comes from embracing the fact that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Life, after all, is complex and unpredictable. No one can possibly know everything or have solutions to every problem. The wisdom that comes with age is not about having all the answers, but about knowing that it's okay not to. Over time, the pressure to be the go-to person for every solution diminishes, replaced by a more humble approach to life. This humility leads to a greater openness to learning and to seeking guidance when needed, rather than pretending to know it all. There's a willingness to admit when we don't have the answers and to ask for help when needed, instead of feeling embarrassed or inadequate. There's a deepened respect for the value of collaboration and the shared wisdom of others in both personal and professional settings. The ability to admit we don't have all the answers fosters more authentic and cooperative relationships. It allows for more honest conversations and opens the door to new perspectives and insights. Moreover, there's a recognition that life itself is a journey of continual learning. No matter how much experience we have gained, there is always more to discover, more to understand, and more ways to grow. This shift in perspective brings a sense of peace as we let go of the pressure to have everything figured out and embrace the uncertainty of life with curiosity and grace. 8. No longer focus on material things in our younger years. It's common to place a lot of importance on material possessions. Whether it's a house, a car, clothing, or gadgets, there's often a drive to acquire more, believing that these things will bring happiness or status. Accumulating wealth and possessions can become a primary goal, sometimes at the expense of other aspects of life. But after 60, there's often a shift in perspective. Material possessions begin to lose their importance, and the focus moves towards experiences, relationships, and inner contentment. There's an understanding that while material things can provide comfort, they don't bring lasting happiness or fulfillment. Over time, the desire to accumulate more fades and is replaced by a desire to simplify life, to focus on what truly matters. Instead of striving for the latest gadgets or trends, the focus shifts to maintaining a sense of peace and joy from within. This doesn't mean giving up all material possessions, but rather recognizing their true value and purpose. There's a growing appreciation for the things that money can't buy, like time spent with loved ones, good health, and personal growth. Minimalism, or simply living with less, can bring a sense of freedom rather than feeling tied down by the need to acquire more. There's an embrace of the idea that less is more, by letting go of the constant need for more material things. There's more time and energy to focus on the things that truly bring joy and meaning. 9. No longer postpone joy. When we're younger, we often think we have all the time in the world. We tell ourselves we'll pursue our passions later, once we've reached a certain goal or stage in life. But this mindset often leads to postponing joy, waiting for the perfect moment that may never come. After 60, there's a realization that life is fleeting and that joy should not be postponed. Waiting for the right time to be happy becomes less important than finding joy in the present moment, the experiences we've postponed. Whether it's travel, learning a new skill, or simply enjoying time with loved ones, become priorities rather than afterthoughts. This shift is not about rushing to do everything at once, but about making space for joy in everyday life. It's about recognizing that happiness is not something to be achieved in the future, but something to be experienced right now. We no longer wait for the perfect circumstances to enjoy life. Instead, we seek out moments of joy in the ordinary. Whether it's savoring a cup of tea, watching a sunset, or spending time with friends and family.